Welcome to the Active Hobo podcast, where we tell stories because stories matter. We are joined by none other than Jess, the great. I've thought about your intro for quite a while now, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to butcher it because you are too many things, and I'm way too much of a fanboy, and I will get it wrong. So I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself formally. But to me, Jess is, I would say, the word I landed at was creator. If I look at what you've done, if I look at the things that you've produced, put out there into the world, as someone that doesn't know you personally at all, I'm like, this is what I would determine to be a real creator. You put magic out there, absolutely love everything that I've seen, whether it be physical things, virtual things, pictures, media. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I'm so appreciative that on such short notice you came through. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's actually a real honor to be here. There are a lot of big compliments there. And I think when it comes, to my intro or my story, I'm always of the belief that I'm still writing it and still trying to figure it all out. But doing so with a desire to live life to the maximum and to be ruthlessly brave. I'm shit scared all the time, but I'm just why don't we just fuck around and find out? And I think that is kind of how I live my life with everything. I don't actually think about things. I just kind of put my hand up and then deal with the consequences afterwards, always.
Ruthlessly brave, fuck around and find out. I think we have the title of our YouTube video.
That is how I do life. And I think it definitely is a blessing and a curse, because when you kind of govern your life that way, you learn really quickly, you make mistakes really fast. But sometimes you also you win big. And I've been very fortunate in, predominantly from a career space, I transitioned into the creative scene and have had a growth that I've reflected on quite recently, and just being wow, that happened really fast. I landed up very niched in the sports space specifically. Predominantly focusing on stills photography, and was very fortunate to kind of have my foundational years working with a sports events company. I was studying an undergrad at the time in religious studies and wanting to go into investigative journalism. And in the process of all of this, ended up being oh my gosh, how hard can it be to run 13 peaks, having never run more than 22 kilometers in my life, and this being my third trail run. And the saying basically...
What was the tone of that question? Was it how hard can it be? Or was it how hard is it?
It was I think a lot of naivety in it, but it was how hard can it be?
That's how I thought I heard it. Okay.
And basically a friend and I were well, why don't we do it on Tuesday next week? And then I was well, why don't we just do it on Saturday? So rocked up on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m, way too late, because Platter Clip had everyone walking up there with a boombox, and did the 13 peaks. And at kilometer 27, I was I've run my fastest trail run or fastest run ever, and then kept going, and it was on track for a sub 24 hour, 1 day badge. And come kilometer 77, someone was you need to have Powerade with you. It's electrolytes, energy, sugars, you need to have this. So I'm 2 a.m, Constantia parking lot, down an entire bottle of concentrate Powerade, because I was
oh no.
This is the thing. And it was disgustingly sweet. So I blocked my nose and I just gulped it back. And at 2 a.m, 77 Ks deep, 24-hour badge in sight, I then proceed to chunder grape Powerade up Constantia Neck.
Standard.
No, and it was horrible. And
there's only going to be one ending to the story.
For the last 30 kilometers were a death march that took me 9 to 10 hours. Anyway, ended up writing a Facebook post about it, and Ryan Sands saw it and basically called me in to do a social media debrief. And his current sponsor at the time, Faces, which is an event company, they then asked me to come in for an interview. And in between my undergrad, really did land my bum in the butter. They offered me a job part-time. So I worked part-time with them for 2 years. And then once I finished my degree, they asked me they basically funded my last year of uni, and then part of the contract was that I would then work full-time for them. So did about 9 months with them full-time, worked Otter and Cape Town Marathon, and really was just like bullshitting my way through this, because they were like,
you make it.
It was like, you have this marketing role as a communications leads and storyteller, and I was like, I am very underqualified for this, but really just went with it, and was very fortunate to like travel to Kenya and tell a story about a marathon runner there, and then go up the garden routes and tell a story of John and Mark Collins and their founding story of Otter, and was just surrounded constantly by people's stories that were just so inspiring, and that did lay the foundation of kind of this creative desire to tell stories.
Wow.
And it wasn't ever.
How old are you at this point? So, if you don't mind asking?
I matriculated when I was 16. So I had taken 2 years to do like a bit of a grow year and find myself.
Okay.
But at the time I was 21.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'll ask it just for the perspective of people watching. I mean, anyone that's watched any of these will know there's this. I always credit it to Aaron Borrell, who's at Cycling Weekly, that like South Africans are far better than they perceive themselves to be. We are the best in many ways across lots of different things in the world. And often, there's excuses. People love excuses. Oh, but I'm a girl. Oh, but I'm a guy. Yeah. Oh, but age. Oh, but. So just to contextualize what you have achieved at what age, as a female, all these things, fake it till you make it, not necessarily with all the skills, all the equipment. It's just, wow, that is inspiring. Like, there's no excuse, but swing big. I guess this started with a crazy, how hard can it be?
Yeah, it was absolutely madness. And I mean, trying to think back of running that distance again,
Have you?
No, I have not. I've entered UTD 100K again this year with the goal and ambition to do it, but it's sandwiched between Epic and then Trucker, which I'll be shooting, and then Sani to See. So it's like a lot of endurance creative events, which I think as creatives, we like to push ourselves to the limit. You don't sleep properly, you don't go to the bathroom properly, you don't eat properly. So you're in
all
the
the
deficit.
things I was going to ask you about.
But to backtrack, Faces really was this incredible foundation for this career that I've kind of found myself in. And after being with them for nine months full time after uni, I kind of got to the point where I was just like, I feel like I've hit a ceiling, and the room for growth here it's kind of plateaued. And now I'm 21, turning 22, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go freelance. And at this point, like I don't even own a camera. I don't really have any kind of offerings. I have experience in the event space, and I've produced and, script written a little bit of film, but it was again, this kind of like, this is like, I've reached a point where now I need to make a decision and like I want some change. And was then very fortunate to kind of land a space in the UTCT media team, and learn through and amongst like incredible mentors. Marzel, who's a fantastic photographer, who's unfortunately left us and moved to Canada. She was spearheading the whole media team at UTCT and just kind of taking a step back and being like, wow, I want to be like that when, I'm older, was just so awesome. And Erin Grell, who's also, another incredible female in this space who's really done well with her career. She shoots now with On internationally, and she's at a bunch of track events. Becky Leeton, as well, like incredibly talented female team of creatives at this event. And I was kind of like, it's so awesome to be surrounded by women in this space who, not that I think, I shot Gravel Burn, and it was myself and another female amongst a team of, 20, 30 men. And that was last year, and I kind of took a step back, and I was just like, I think we focus so often on like the fact that there are no women in the space, or there are too many men in the space. And I think, obviously, the space in sports photography, it is really challenging. You're sitting on the back of a bike, you're getting absolutely dust blasted, you're trying to cling on for dear life while take a photo.
It's a gnarly gig.
It is a gnarly gig, and I think clients tend to, from general kind of, there are a lot more men in the space, so they tend to choose men, but also they choose men most of the time because they think that they're fitter and more capable and stronger. And I don't think it's a matter of highlighting the differences between the two, female and male. I think we have to see this as like, we are different, like I can hang on the back of a motorcycle with a 15, 20 kg backpack and run up a mountain to get the shot. But like, it's hard. Like it's a lot harder for me than someone who's double my height and, you know, got 10 kgs on me. And just acknowledging that difference, I think, creates a little bit more like allowance and like room for like, well, how can we actually bring women in? And like, what is there then, like, what is then their angle of shooting? And what does that look like?
At UTCT, was that female complement of staff intentional by design? Did they start with this viewpoint of saying we want to be female led for a particular creative reason or whatever?
I'm not sure. I think a lot of emotion, like more emotive storytelling does come through a female lens. And there is a lot more focus on like, you know, details. Like if I look at my style, like I really focus on not necessarily like that clean, beautiful, like, you know, sports event photo where like someone's cresting the mountain while the sun is, I can't shoot like that. That's not me. I'm going to do a close-up crop on like a tear rolling down someone's face or two hands holding, you know, across the finish line. I think that...
Anyone that doesn't follow her page, go and follow her.
But that's where, you know, I did spend a lot of my time like looking at like, you know, Zach Zinn, who's an icon, and Max Sully and Ray Cox and Menz, and like there are icons in the space, goats. You know, the actual goats, and they are incredible at what they do because their photos are very uniquely theirs. And I spent so much of my time in the beginning of my career being like, oh, I need to be like them and I need to try that, and just lost myself in it. And it gets to a point where I was like, actually, I just need to own what is my shooting style and what I like to shoot. And then it's less stressful.
Must have been a beautiful moment.
It was. But to answer your question, I don't know if UTCT originally kind of went there with the direction of being like, let's have a women-led team. I think it was just, you know, a natural coming of
I like the idea that it was. So funny enough, Sarah and I spoke about this yesterday on the Breakaway podcast. I have I suppose you could say, a polarized view on women in the world, let alone in sport or in corporate. And I have a wife who is one of the most successful people I know, with no shortage of excuses to have landed up in an otherwise role in life. She's made what she's made of herself purely because of her drive. So I don't subscribe to color, race, gender, religion, any of those things determining the outcome. Anyone that uses that as the I don't have because, for me, bullshit. Are there some instances where it can be improved, and you could amplify that with certain voices? So, you know, not many South Africans praise and love Lewis Hamilton in the F1 paddock. He's my favorite, and he does go on these like big political rants, and he'll talk about, you know, race equality, but he's one of the people that there's that South African lady who's in the Mercedes team as a biochemist or whatever. He was instrumental in picking her out, finding her, and like he played a big role in motivating them to go with her, because it is an extremely male dominant space. And he's like, she's just as good. She ticks a color box, she ticks a female box, give her a shot. Now, I don't know exactly how that happened, but he enabled that. God knows the amount of inspiration she's given to other women to say, like, there's a whole field of expertise here. Very pro that kind of stuff. And on the Mickey Lou side, the agency, we sit in boardrooms with big marketing execs, big teams. On average, I'd say 90% of that is female. I interact with a lot of incredibly smart females. The management and leadership in that business, we intentionally did decide we wanted to be female. I happen to be a male and white. My business partner happens to be a male and white. We can't help for those things. But having worked, it's an 11-year-old agency, we had found our personal experience was that women were better. They were better operationally, they were better in detail. That was our experience. So we said, well, let's lean into that. Let's make the leaders of this business female, which is not to say if a male came along, he would be excluded. But it was, and I always just find that interesting. And I think to your point, it's like, don't make it policy. It should be merit-based, and understand and be okay with it. Like if you're in an environment where there's 30 guys and there's 2 females, maybe there's a reason, maybe there isn't. Celebrate the creative excellence. If it's creative, if it's performance, whatever it is. And if there's room to improve that, then, by all means.
I do.
I'm yet to encounter anyone that has said or experienced direct exclusion as a result of race. Race to a degree, if you're trying to get a corporate job or if you're in public sector, which is like the focus of this channel. But in sporting terms, in opportunity terms, I'm yet to meet anyone that is like, oh, I would have got that gig, but unfortunately I'm a female, or unfortunately I'm white. I haven't experienced that yet.
I think in the photography space, there's subtle hints of that. I've had like 1 or 2 interactions where, I have been booked for a job and then like at last moment being subbed up for a male. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it is just merit-based. I guess it's a metric that you can't necessarily track or quantify. But I've also been on events and had, brand managers who are booking clients, who are booking photographers for, shoots, have been like, oh, well, we've opted for, X, who is a male, because they think that they're stronger and faster at, following a trail man.
Really interesting.
And it's real. I mean, I worked UTMB last year, and I was working with a photographer friend of mine who is very talented, and I look up to him like highly. And he had spoken about one of my photography idols. She is incredible. And basically had alluded to the fact that she'd like made it in her career because she'd kind of like, buttered her way up or like slept her way to the top. And I kind of took a step back and was just like, in the same breath, you're here at this event and you're schmoozing all of the big brands. You're at every single brand activation. You're talking to every single marketing manager. Like, your actions are mirroring the exact same thing that you are accusing someone of. What is the difference? Is it just because you're threatened by what she's achieved?
Normally that is the case.
And it was really just this example of just like, if a woman is in the space and done really well, she's actually just
she must have just
slept her way to the top. And there are instances like that. I think the funniest thing for me, or not really the funniest, but kind of like a moment of just taking a step back, is like when you're in an event space and you are the only female there, and you are putting up with like sleeping in a tent and taking down your own tent and like cleaning your own gear and sitting on the back of the bike and trying to like read a map and trying to get to a checkpoint, and you're just like, I'm the only woman here, like what is going on? And then I think it is merit-based. I do think that you get the job because it's merit-based, but also being there creates then a representation of like, okay, well, other women can be here. And it not only like inspires, hopefully, other women, like that's always kind of my goals. It's like, you do want other females in the space, because like, how are they going to tell the story? What is it going to look like? But also just then realizing that like other men in the space and other brands or clients can see the capabilities of talent and not put it down to gender, and put it down then exclusively to actually merits, which I think should be the case. I'm so in the same that,
physicality is very interesting. I've never even thought about like what that must entail. I mean, it's that in and of itself must be quite intimidating, because and let me be clear, I've been dropped weekly by females on mountain bikes, road bikes, trails, runs. Like there is a plethora of women that are stronger than me at everything. And I mean, the thought of that bag, you said it's like 15, 20 kg.
Yeah, gear.
Back of bike. I mean, that must be, that's quite something.
It is. I often, people say, what are you training for? I'm like,
to do a day in the life of you at an event. So you photographing the event, and if we can follow that, would actually be really cool. Because I can't even. Sully kind of gave some clues around it.
But Sully is also super, super, super humble. Like, he'll never, actually disclose, how crazy fucked up his, day has been. He'll be like, no, it was chilled. And he's like probably crashed his bike too. Yeah, exactly.
He actually had an interesting perspective on this. I asked him, like, do you think the space is, like, it's saturated? There's too much. There's too many people trying to do the same thing. And his viewpoint was like, no, not at all. Like, not at all, because he broke in. There was a moment, the same as you broke through, he broke through, Ray will have broke through. Everyone's at their breakthrough moment, and there always seems to be enough.
Yeah.
And I think there's two big things happening at the moment, a few, but two main ones is the need for digital media is bigger than it's ever been and growing faster than anyone can even begin to comprehend. And AI is not going to solve it.
Yeah.
It'll play a role. It'll be a feature in, I'm sure you've used AI tools to help post-production, script writing, that kind of stuff. Fantastic tool. AI is never going to replace the content we and our community love. It's not going to replace this conversation. It's not going to replace that picture, that tear, that never going to happen.
Especially from an event that's, happening in real time.
Never going to happen. So that's grown, the demand for it. And then there's this other thing happening where these people are bringing different perspectives. And from that point of view, please God, let there be more females getting into it, because there is I only know now through what we've done, how the output of whatever it is that you're capturing is so influenced by the individual behind the camera, like coming up with it. Alec, who's not here, he's in Taipei for the next 2 weeks. Him and Reichardt do all our posts and a lot of the creative work ahead of time. And Reichardt to Alec, like if they work on the exact same project, separate, and you put a ball between them and they don't see it, amazing to see what comes out. And it's just like, that is beautiful. Neither of them are right. Neither of them are wrong. They just both, and I'm like, you should have all of that. You should have 5 of those things. And because people watch all of them. And in the space that we're in at the moment, people will consume 5 different videos about the same thing. You're not going to just look at one picture from UTCT, UTMB, cycle tour, whatever. You'll consume a bunch of it. So there's space for more people. And it's, I think it's an exciting time.
It is. And like, just to echo, like, I don't know the extent of what Sully or Max shared, but like to kind of echo that sentiment of like, it really is true. Like, everyone has a different style, and there's going to be a different style for a different job. And I think what I have absolutely come to love and been so grateful for in my own personal journey is just how open and willing I'm calling it the sports photography community is. It's people who are working sports events, people who are working brand campaigns in sports in South Africa.
Specifically photography, videography?
Videography, photography, like locally in the sports space, has blown my mind. And I do attribute a lot of kind of this fast growth that I felt in the space to that, because any person that I have gone to with a question has been like, come, like, sit down, let's mess around. Like, let me show you, this is how I'm doing it. There's never been a, this is mine. Like, I want to hide. I'm scared that you're going to take my clients and my jobs. There are unfortunately incidents where, someone does undercut you and take your clients and, run with it when you put them forward for a job that you can't do. But, that is really few and far between. And I think from what I've experienced within this community is that, like, everyone is willing to share. And the amount of times that, like, Max has pulled me in for a job, or I've put him forward for a job, and like this collective working together really just creates so much like harmony, and like, it fast tracks everyone's growth at the end of the day. And that's been incredible. So the last 2 years I've spent, my summers are basically just chasing summer. So work the summer season here for sports events, and then go to Europe and, shoot UTMB and shoot for ASOS cycling, and it would just be like
bum butter.
Yeah, no, literally. I mean, flip. Wow. There's been a lot of sacrifice in that as well. Sure. It hasn't necessarily always been easy, and especially like
what's the sacrifice someone doesn't think?
Yeah, I mean, so a big one. I last year put a pitch forward to NEOS Grenadier locally, and I was like, I'm shooting in the Drakensberg, and then I'm coming back to the Cedar, and then I'm going back to the Drakensberg. Why don't I create a behind-the-scenes story of like, covering sports events, what that looks like. I'll film myself, I'll pull this like reel together, this photographic like, journal and story. And I think everyone was like, wow, you've landed this like massive gig. And I was like, I was out of pocket. I paid like, to fill that guzzling tank. I was
going to say, if you had to cover fuel, you did.
I covered fuel myself. Everyone was just like, no, you've got it, you've made it big time. And I was like, I think I'm 16K deep in fuel. Like, everything I made on both events is now down the drain to build portfolio and to show brands like that you can do something. And
there's a lot of investment.
There is a lot of investment, and your gear is expensive. And, sometimes I also went over to Europe, and I wanted to shoot Tour de Femme last year, and basically got booked with EF to do the video. And then it kind of was like, maybe I shouldn't do this because I'm not a videographer, I'm a stills photographer. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned in this is like, yes, say, fuck it and how hard can it be?
Swing big.
But also at the same time, like, know when to step back and be like, that's too big of a risk to take that will ultimately jeopardize client reputation or like brand partnership. And I just said to them, I'm not a videographer, I'm a stills photographer. I can step in on a stills basis, but I don't actually want the pressure or the stress of an event like Tour de Femme, shooting video and having my deliverables exactly not being something that I'm proud of. And so I was like, well, I'm in Europe anyway, I might as well go and cycle Tour de Femme, bike packet every stage and the distance between each stage, and just shoot content along the way. And that trip really broke me mentally. Like I'd never have done something from an endurance perspective that I just wasn't having fun. And I had, like,
at any point?
At any point. I was doing like 200 plus kilometers a day for 8 days straight, with my biggest day being like 250 Ks.
Elevation?
Massive elevation. Like
2,000-3,000.
Yeah,
probably.
it was, it was horrible. And my knee had gone, and like I had the worst saddle sores, and I was kind of like, what am I doing? But after all of this like traumatic kind of like women empowerment, find yourself adventure that I committed to, I managed to throw in 1 week like 36,000 Rand down the drain. I canceled my flight without a return ticket, had to rebook my flights with my bike back home, and then broke like Ruth Croft, who won UTMB's massive like VUTMB event. I broke her coffee machine, which cost me 10,000 Rand. So now I'm in Europe, like on a South African budget. I've just thrown like 36K down the drain. The deposit that I made from working UTMB with Adidas is now like just paid for all of this disaster that I've created. Yeah. And it just like, I took a step back and I was like, this is hilarious, you know, like, how am I here? So, you know, I think that was just such a pinnacle moment for me, because I was kind of like, this creative space is incredible. And I love it. And every time I step behind the camera, I'm like, this is where I'm meant to be. But from like, the big learnings and big kind of, you know, downsides of it is just like that financial security of like, when are you getting paid? Like half the time you're negotiating your rates and you're getting like a fourth of that, you know? And
how do you manage that stress? And I asked that sitting at day, feeling that crushing pressure. This year in particular, it's been, this whole thing that we put on is entirely funded. There's no sponsor, there's no anything. So we're trying to run this as long as we can and I hope something miraculous happens. And then there's another business. I'm sitting thinking this morning, like, I need better tools. That weighs, and it's heavy. You can feel it.
It is heavy, and it's stifling, because it also then results in you showing up as a less than version of yourself, you know, you're
not giving your best when you're functioning from there. So give me a tip and trick to help me.
I don't know if I can, because in the process of all of this, like, am I financially going to make it through? And what does this financial trajectory look like? And how can I make it work? I took a full-time job, and I was kind of like, I need that security. And it was, the company that I work for are incredible. Like, they are the most amazing people, and have been so wonderful in just like dealing with my processing of coming to a realization that this was the wrong move for me. And I knew that
the full-time job.
Okay. And I knew that very, very early on. I basically had a conversation about resigning like a month into my probation periods. And then they were amazing and kind of like, we're like, oh, let's renegotiate. And then I tried to resign again, and then it didn't really work. And here I am still in this job. And as I said, like, it is a really cool company, and the people that I get to work with are fantastic. But it is the example of basically running away from that financial security that I felt. And in retrospect, and having taken this job, it provided me with a clarity of actually where I wanted to be. And it's like, okay, well, how could I have made it work? And what would that have looked like? And I definitely think from, you know, the biggest issue that I had or encountered was, you know, maybe too many projects for portfolio that came out of my own personal budget. Dealing with clients that would not pay on time was a big one. And it's like, okay, well, then you're not releasing your content until there's some form of like payment that is received, or a deposit. Deposits are a big thing as well, that I definitely, you know, moving and transitioning back into the freelance space, which I will be doing this year, which I'm very excited for. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I did have in a corporate space again. I think it really affirmed where I don't want to be.
Knowing what you don't want is as empowering as knowing what you do want.
Exactly.
It shapes a lot of your decision.
100%. And
decision making, and
I've
what you're willing to sacrifice.
Learned a lot, and realizing that, like, instead of running away from something that isn't working out of fear because, you know, you think actually that's a safer option, like, no, follow your intuition of what feels right, and just try and create structure around that can help benefit you. So even just with contracts, you know, if you're signing a contract to get booked for a job, I think the biggest thing for me was that, like, you'd be promised X and then they drop you last minute, or they'd cut half the budget and you'd only be like compensated half. And it's like, there has to be some formal contract in place to ensure your security, and how you being compensated fairly for that. It's such a difficult one. I think that's also why I have so many fingers and so many pies. I also have retainer clients that I was working with from just a social media perspective that, okay, at least each month you're getting X. Those are always difficult ones to navigate, because so often you're giving them so much more than what you would do for a client, and you're just realistically, I should be billing you 3-4 times this for what you're receiving. But it's ultimately, you take that sacrifice for the security of, okay, well, I'm on this retainer.
And people know that. Make no mistake. They know the leverage they have.
Yeah.
It's I would invite anyone that watches us to chime in on their comments, their own experiences, because I can, as you're sitting here talking, everything resonates. I can relate to everything you're saying. So many other people will, and I think so many people want to go into the space. It's difficult in Cape Town to not be romanced by the idea. You see these digital nomads from around the world that write for these big magazines and produce content for A, B, and C, and are cycling through the seaboard at 9 a.m, and it's all their fancy matched kits, and it's Panama and it's map. It's oh, this looks amazing, and it's MacBook open, work for 3 hours, and it looks like this wonderful. And it's, for many people that are in it, know that might be your Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a completely different story. And my own realization was, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And your options are full hobo.
Yeah.
Where it's go and join the rest of the Oaks in Cape Town. Jordan's making a big effort to house them off taxpayers' money, so maybe they'll end up positive. Corporate, I cannot bring myself to the sacrifice. When I say corporate, any 8 to 5 job, it's just, it's too stifling. And you got to know that, because if you can't live with that, then you're accepting you're going to live without security. You have to balance that stress, and you've got to find gratitude while you are.
I think that's been the biggest realization from taking this job, is that I've realized that your biggest financial asset is actually your time. And while you might lose the security of being paid, having a corporate job, you are so poor when it comes to time. And it's a massive thing. I still struggle. I sit in the car and I spend 3 hours of my day driving to work when I'm in the office. And just that of I have lost 3 hours of my day to just commuting. That is 3 hours of time that's been spent that you can never get back. And I think, just trying to figure out what is a priority to you, what do you value, and what are you willing to sacrifice? If it is the security of finances, then at least you have time. And what are you then choosing to spend doing that time? Or probably repay itself back in some form of financial security further along the lines. So yeah, it is such a difficult one. Obviously feeling
great peace in accepting it and knowing it. Just saying that I've chosen this.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough. Invest the time, and things do come. They will always come. Ebbs and flows, like that. It is the case, but it does also give you the opportunity to reflect on. I think that the media model, there's loads of room for optimization and improvement. It's quite legacy. It's very much book for a job. The same people are almost always booking the majority of the work. So if there's 100 Rand in total circulation in the sports photography field, as an example, it will almost always be coming from the same people. And they know the leverage they have, my belief at least.
Yeah.
They will ultimately always land up spending their budget across a group of people. Get yourself there. That's a good entry point. Build your profile, your, your portfolio.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there's opportunities though. And it's how do you go and find retainer work, but not.
Yeah.
And we've spent a lot of time on it. And there's opportunities there. You just have to go for it. There's always the sweat equity thing at the start.
Yeah. I think even sweat equity is something that you probably will never not have to do. There's always going to be an element of having to prove yourself. And I think just holding that truth and knowing okay, it looks glamorous as a career, and it is. It's fucking fun. That's the thing. I think people no, but it's true. Everyone's just my life is so hard, my work's so hard. And yeah, it is. But when you we are so privileged to be able to call this work. Like, you shit off.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's like you're staying in luxury hotels when you're doing these events. And no, like half the time you're standing on the finish line holding a pee for 5 hours, you know, and like that's the nature of it. But you're like, fuck, I get to do this for work. This is so cool. But it is hard. And I think knowing that there is always going to be an element of sweat equity or some form of investment is really important, because that's also how you secure, you know, new clients. In the beginning, I think it is really hard. I am definitely in my first year of freelancing. I think I was like scraping by. It was like any debit order came off and I was like in a panic. I was like, oh my God, like how are we going to make it through? But yeah, and I was lucky. I have a very, it's not a small side hustle. It doesn't actually, I did maths lit. So the fact that, you know, this business is still running, but it's running at a loss, but it's still running, blows my mind. I have these vegan and gluten-free cookies, Bitchy bites.
That's part of the story. I've been dying to get into this.
But so I had that on the side as well, and was teaching yoga for a bit. So at least there was like different revenues of money coming through. And then it got to a point when I was like, oh, there's actually just too much. Like you can't be juggling 500 balls all the time. Like it's just, you half bake everything otherwise. So I used to bake biscuits out of my apartment.
Can you give us the Bitchy Bite story?
The Bitchy Bites story.
It's still ongoing, though.
Bitchy Bites is still ongoing. Bitchy Bites, I feel like, you know, I have this tumultuous relationship with Bitchy Bites, where I was like, I love Bitchy Bites, but Bitchy Bites takes so much of my time and attention, but it doesn't generate any money. And I've tried to stop, and people are like, please don't stop. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it for the people.
Yeah, but I'm like, please don't stop, because I'm sitting downstairs.
But no, and also like I can't bring myself to stop, because it's also just been such a journey, and such a like hair pulling like experience. Like I have learned so much. But I started when I was in uni. I was baking from home with my folks, and you know, I basically you know, after running 13 peaks, got quite competitive with my running and was like, this is epic. I want to do something with this, and got a coach and trained really hard, and went too hard, too fast, and ended up fracturing my back. Had 3 spinal stress fractures and a bilateral labral tear.
From a bail?
No, just from running too much. My body was like, it crumpled. It literally just fell to pieces.
This story is one we've heard before.
Yeah, and it was just too much and not enough information about recovery and fueling and all of those things. And
that sounds insane.
It was
recovered.
I have recovered. I don't run as fast or as hard, or I'm able to train like I used to. But yeah, I basically went from training 22 hours a week to being like, I have 22 hours of my week now. What am I going to do with it? So I started baking these biscuits, and they are like vegan and gluten-free and refined sugar-free and all of these things, but like taste good. You know, they don't taste like rabbit food or cardboard. And had dropped them off at a few friends that surf, and one of my friends was the manager at Salt, and he was like, we need to put a jar in here. And that is literally how it happened. There was no intention. I know, it's crazy. Again, like bum in the butter situation. Like it was, you know, I had no intention of starting a business, and all of a sudden Salt had a cookie jar that I was like, well, how are we going to make these fun so people actually want to try them? Because you say vegan and people are like, no thanks. So I was like, I'm going to plaster the jar with a pink sticker that says eat my cookie. And it worked. And they sold out in like 2 days, and they ordered another jar. And then Good Riddance in Komiki were like, we need a jar.
Love
so I stuck a so good it'll make you crumb on their jar. And and it took off, and people.
The Roost one must have done very well as well.
Yeah, the Roost are still
so much footfall in there.
Especially for cyclists, like they sell like 100 cookies a week, which is crazy. And so I was in between trying to work for Faces and doing my undergrad. I was baking biscuits, and it was just like a lot. And then I roped my brother in, and I have to give it to him because he ended up baking a lot of the biscuits when I was like trying to finish my undergrad and still work for Faces, and he was like very involved, and then he was the delivery boy, and it probably would have been considered child labor because I was not paying him enough.
Sweat equity.
Yeah, exactly, sweat equity. But and then moved out of home and moved into an apartment, to the point where like on bake days I would have 500 biscuits like spread across the countertops of my apartment. And yeah, I'm so glad I no longer bake out of an apartment. Food and safety definitely would have closed me down. And over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, it's never really taken off, but it's incrementally grown. I stuck about like 20 cafes in Cape Town, and I have an incredible team, the OO team. They used to have a vegan ice cream shop in Cliff Street called Ditto. They do oat milks and everything like that. They've now taken over the manufacturing of my biscuits. So they run everything. They run the deliveries, they do the invoicing, they do the actual baking, the accounts. They are incredible. And a lot of the kind of survival of Bitchy Bites in the last year and a half is 100% attributed to them. I kind of sit and do socials and more kind of cafe like procurement and
come up with catchy stickers.
Yeah, but it's always been something that's just been silly and fun. And I think sometimes you know, when you move through life, you're like, there's a lot of seriousness and there's a lot of just sadness. And I think the real intention with Bitchy Bites has always been just to like actually have a little bit of fun. And, you know, I've been so cool to be able to like, you know, sponsor some biscuits to Gallows and stuff like that. And just the joy, I did like my first August, like 3 years into Bitchy Bites, and someone cycled past me that I didn't know, and they're like, "It's the Bitchy Bites lady." And I was like, that made my whole year. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is epic. So, and Jess Wilkinson, she's also my cycling icon, and she's, you know, she's been so cool, like one of the OG kind of supporters. She cycles with a power to my cookie on her cycling bibs, and I'm like, I feel honored that you running and cycling around with that on your kit.
You guys lent into the messaging. That is so funny.
So it's been super, super cool. Obviously, there've been some really difficult moments as well, especially when you kind of get into like the legal side of a business, and you know, like I'm like 30K deep and trying to get it trademarked, you know, because they don't want to trademark Bitchy Bites because of profanity. And I had a baker who was baking for me, and he unfortunately ran off with my recipes and started baking the exact same biscuits for someone else, and then trying to like be like, well, you signed an NDA, this doesn't necessarily work, but also like you can't take legal action against someone that, you know, is just trying to like make a living to survive. And there's been some really hard moments of, I also went through the process of trying to sell it, wrote up a, you know, sales contract and everything. And I got cold feet in the last minute and kind of pulled out. And I'm so glad that I did, because I think life would be a little bit less sweet without Bitchy Bites. Probably like, would have aged a lot slower, but it's been cool.
How do we become a stockist, or anyone else for that matter?
Drop off a jar next week. I have a website, and there's a whole kind of wholesale sheet on there, basically just like describing the whole process. So you get a jar, you have your own jar, and then we actually like, just to make sure that it's from a recycling perspective, like I don't want to keep, you know, if you want, you can put them into plastic little bags, but it comes in a glass jar, and we recycle the jar every week.
Smart.
Yeah. So we've got a delivery guy who does delivery runs to the Deep South on Thursday. So he does all of the cafes in the South, and then on Wednesday he does all of the town and like Sea Point, Garden.
So if someone sees us, they want it in their office, they want it in their cafe, there's scope for that.
There is, absolutely, 100%. Also, we do personal orders as well. So if people do want to just order a jar for home, I don't recommend that because it's very dangerous. I mean, I think...
Not the problem with when you say it's gluten-free, blah, blah, free.
You think it's basically a salad.
It's healthy.
It is healthy.
I will lose weight when I eat this, which is what I've told myself every time I've had one. And I haven't gone and fact-checked that because I don't want to ruin it. But I've been led to believe that I will not, in fact, lose weight.
It's hilarious. No, but
Bitchy Bites diet.
I say that they're basically a salad because I will also like go through 8 in a day, and I'm like, that is ridiculous. I think the record for most consumed biscuits in a day is by Carl Bucklow, and he basically ate an entire jar, which is 24 biscuits.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he obviously lost weight.
He
must be anorexic.
The way that he's running at the moment definitely says so.
What is that challenge you guys did? I think I saw Matt Barch posted it.
Twitter Bitchy.
In like the highest regard. He's
unreal.
He's like, from a running point of view, EQ, RQ, creative. Matt Barch is my
I second
absolute role model. And he was involved like day one of this thing. The guy who put these panels in picking
What
up
a
the
legend.
tripods, the cameras, all that.
No,
Like, his time, and I could do a whole hour just glazing that guy.
And an incredible writer. I don't know if you've...
Phenomenal. His blogs that he puts up, when
No.
he's just
Just
exceptional.
the-
He
yeah.
is the best creative talent, full stop. To me, everything, all around, like there's just, you can't touch the guy.
Yeah.
His humbleness and his EQ wrapped up in that as well. It's just, I've been trying to get him into this chair, but it's like impossible because he is so humble.
Yeah.
Somehow he even suffers from imposter syndrome. Anyway, he mentioned the
Twitter
he shared it with me.
Bitchy.
So, like, check this is a cool idea.
Yeah.
Like, you should get in contact with him. I've been wrapped up in the same cycle of
Well, we should
time
do
foreigners and but that was so flipping cool. People because how many of those do you see? And people actually went and did it.
No,
so what was the story there for anyone who hasn't seen it or knows what I'm
Twitter
talking about?
Bitchy, I feel like we have to do an active Hobo, cross collab with Twitter Bitchy. But the idea was that ultimately you would like cycle past as many of the stocking cafes, and refuel with Bitchy Bites as kind of your fuel snack along the route. So it started in Muizenberg because that was the home to where basically the first big batch was born. And then you'd start at Harvest Cafe as a stockist, and then you'd cycle past Salt. You didn't, it's a 5K cycle if that. So you don't need to stop right away for Biscuits. And then you'd go through Clovelly Golf Course, up Ovarput, which is supposed to be a gravel bike route. You can,
It's tough.
yeah, you can't,
Tough.
you can do Twitter Bitchy on a mountain bike, but ultimately like it's more of a
Spread of
suffer
gravel.
on a gravel bike. So up
Gravel fixie.
it is. That would be horrific. But I'm in. There's like
I'm not.
endless supply of
I'm
Bitchy
not.
Bites whoever does that. Like, you're done. You're done for the year. You
Rhea
can,
Wagner's going to go and do it. Watch. She's like the queen of fixie.
she's a beast. Rhea also did it with Tracy, and they just had the best day out on this Twitter Bitchy. But yeah, you go up to Takai, down Takai, up to Constantia, and Black Box used to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
But they stopped stocking me. So part of this challenge was that you had to go up to Black Box and you had to ask for the Bitchy Bites because, there has to be an element of sass and challenge them for why they're no longer stocking me.
I did that, by the way.
I'm so glad you did that. Thank you.
The guy there is just like, it's
It's
not
on
me.
me.
I don't make these decisions.
Yeah, flip. And now they're no longer there, which is also a little bit of a sad story, but
They moved to Table Mountain.
they did.
Yeah.
I actually popped him a message the other day and I was like, so you have a permanent spot now.
Yeah.
Can I come drop off a jar?
Yeah. Standard.
Yeah, no. But it's like 100K, 60% of it is gravel. Every finisher gets a jar of Bitchy Bites and you get your name on the leaderboard.
You did it whenever you wanted to. You
Yeah.
said follow the Strava route.
Yeah,
which is
follow the Strava
That
route.
was the massive genius of this thing.
Yeah, it's when you want. I think the idea of also just like a set organized events is that like to try and bring people when there is already such a saturated racing calendar and people are
Crazy at the moment.
It is crazy and people are training for specific things. It's kind of like use it as your training right. Go when you want. If you have a Monday or a weekend off, whatever it is, like just go and have fun. It is really hard. I think the first time I did it, I did it with my ex-partner at the time, and he's obviously a lot stronger than me. But you could see like just the level of like enthusiasm slowly fading because it took us 10 hours to do 100 Ks. And I've since done it a lot.
I'm sure the word bitch starts coming out.
No, it
very
did.
frequently.
There's a section in Newlands, I think like I was walking my gravel bike down and I was like, this is just not fun. I'm not.
Kirsten Bosch.
I sat down, had a cry. I was like, I just want to call an Uber and I give up on Twitter, bitch.
The route and it gets quite hectic. Yeah. That's gnarly.
No, it is. So it is. It's
Which is kind of I'm starting to see it's a bit of your brand.
Yeah.
I'm still not over that 13 Peaks thing.
No, that was a bit crazy. I think it was an older, different version of Jess. I wish sometimes I could have that level of just
I'm
back around and find
still
out.
hanging in there. I wanted to run a marathon last year for no particular reason.
I think that's harder though.
It was a Monday. I messaged this guy, Nick Warnicker. He's just like game for anything. It's like, Nick, I need to run this marathon. Like the year's run out. I haven't had a chance. Like, you keen to go run one? Sure. Started and we just ran until we got to 42. And
on road or trail?
Road.
See, that for me is
and I'm like
hectic.
that. I could maybe have gone to 50 if like I really wanted to, but we were about to get hijacked. They had Ocean View
Hectic.
after Scarborough, like Oaks closing in, like literally. Uber just got there in time. We hopped in. It was like classic South Africa moment.
It's so gnarly.
It's like standard.
That's harder than 13 peaks. Like,
by the end of the road, we were like, let's go get a beer. It's like South African. It's like you just get over things.
Gosh.
And like you got to do things to appreciate what other people, the amazing achievements of others. And I sat with Kai from Hot Play Leopards, and he had mentioned 13 peaks was a big part of what he did. He was also chasing a time, and it's like you hear the numbers, you're like, oh, it must be pretty gnarly. Chat to Matt, and he's just like podiuming these 100-milers, and it's like, oh, that must be insane. But you got no idea until you go around on the road on tire, like perfect conditions. That was tough.
Yeah.
13 peaks, 100, and isn't like it's over 100? 113, elevation of like 1 billion. I can't get my head around. I'm like, how is that physically possible? And you just like,
well, it was very much so like a shuffle. It wasn't like I was running.
There's no way you're getting away from the intensity of it. I just, it's on my bucket list, and I just like, I don't know when I'm gonna take the same approach of just like, fuck it, just go do it. I think like you have to do it that way.
I do. I think.
Cannot imagine how you finish that.
But with everything in life, I think like when you spend so much time actually thinking about what you're going to do, you build it into so much more. And like that's what I was saying in the beginning. It was like, I think my story is like largely centered around this like just put your hand up and do it, and then deal with the consequences after.
See it through.
And see it through. Critical. And I think with any big event, even if it's not even like a matter about the distance, but just like it's big for you. I think, it's such a funny thing, like when you're in it, and that's always the biggest thing. It's like you can spend so much time worrying about doing it, but when you're actually just doing it, just like you're there, you're in the moment, like don't think about too much more. I always like at the start line of a race, I always get like so nervous and scared, but then the moment the gun goes off, it's just kind of like your body knows what to do. You just in this. Wait a minute,
this is fun.
This is fun. You're like, this is what I wanted to do. Last year I signed a friend and I up for 361. And it was awesome. I had a great time besides wanting to sell my bike and actually putting it on Marketplace at 315 kilometers. I put it onto Marketplace. I was like, I'm done. It's
that like last sector is so hectic.
Horrible. But I gave both of us no option to think about it. I just entered it. I was like, give me your ID number.
Best way to do it.
And, it was the best thing because it was like, there's no actual like consequential thinking of like, well, I'm not really trained enough and I don't have this and I have no experience. It's just like, just do it.
Favorite event?
Oh, man.
Favorite gravel event? Let me narrow it down.
Favorite gravel event? That is so hard. Can I have two?
Can have two.
Okay, awesome. The Cedar, when it was a 245.
OG.
That was epic. Like, that was amazing. And then the Gallows. Gallows will forever be like the cornerstone of my cycling chapter. I got
that heartbeat at the start. It was the coolest thing ever.
So awesome. It was the first gravel race I'd ever done. I got nominated for this. I don't know if you know Community Connect. They do this raffle. And I was like, no, thank you. So I won it, and I'd never ridden more than like 40 kilometers ever in my life, crazy. And let alone on gravel. So I went and did it, drove up by myself, did this event, finished stone last. It took me like close to 8 hours. And then Troy, who does all the race logistics and operations, he was cycling up because that's when they finished at the top. And I had like 300 meters to go, and he came up to me and I was like, I just need like something to eat. And he's just like, don't worry, you've got like 3Ks to go. And I was like, fuck that shit, I'm turning around. And literally turned around, and he's like, I'm joking. It's 300 meters. I crawled across the finish line. I was so spent, I couldn't even cycle down. And that's in the bug bits. I entered Cedar right after that and did the 245, but I've come back since to that event and I've shot it, and then I wrote
some of the best pictures I've seen. That was the pictures you took there.
But Gallows has this, I'd say the spirit of the event, the spirit of the people, the actual environment.
It's got a lot to do with we talk about like the difference, two people shooting the same thing, like how they perceive things and pull it off. The exact same can be said for an event. And you look at the people behind Cedar, you know who they are. Kizza and Carl behind Gallows. Those are, again, of the best creative minds. They understand when they put something in, you can feel it in that event. Everyone can feel it. You can see it. You can't see it, but it's like you can feel it. You can touch. You know what I mean? And that's what makes them those events. Have you done Desolation.
I worked with Julian on that event, so I haven't ridden it. And I was going to say third event would be Road to Desolation, but I've never ridden it, so I can't speak to that. But
it's on the same level.
Yeah, and I think
in terms of that.
Yeah, and there's that element of also like cowboyness to eventing, which I think speaks to the grassroots of the event, but it's also kind of like this gung-ho, let's just do it, you know?
There's
and
an authenticity in there that's
really awesome. And they're all, again, Julian, like I put him on this pedestal because he really is so creatively challenged and he is very direct.
Excellent.
Excellent. And again, that's I mean, and his wife, Katie, you know, she is the heart and soul of that event from like design, stylistic elements as well. And together they've created something super epic. And I'm so glad that it's back on the race calendar this year.
Let's come see when the gravel season is in full swing. We've got these posters that we made. And it's Desolation, Gallows, and the Cedar.
Yeah.
And it's different pictures from each of them. I'm gonna show it to you. You might enjoy them.
No, I'd love to see that.
That's
no, those are three.
So if someone asked me
events.
favorites, it would have to be those three. You can't pick.
You can't.
Those, like, you have to have them on your calendar. The problem with those events is they ruin others.
Yeah, they do.
You go from there to like I don't want to say like the full name of them, but you go to these professionally organized events. Race to the Sea as an example, like Canola Roller, like corporatized, and they're so good in the ablutions and I'm just like, ick.
Yeah.
This feels like it doesn't, and I'm sure these guys want their events to get to that point because they also will be running them, you know, the game, like they must be running them at immense
losses.
Must be. It's impossible because they don't have big title sponsors and that kind of stuff on board. So they're doing it for the love of the game, for sure. They haven't told me this, so that's my guess. And yet they still do them. And it's like, at some point, that will go. So like we often say on the show and in the breakaway, like be so grateful every event you go to because they are so tough. The people that are putting these things on, we've got no clue what they go through to make them happen. And when you go to those three in particular, it's just like,
especially because like
peak, you won't get better than
exactly. And it is all out, like largely out of pockets, you know, and it's for, as you said, it's for the love of it. I think what's also so special about those three events is like Road to Desolation is in the Eastern Cape. Like, how cool to be in the Eastern Cape. And then you think of Gallows in like McGregor in that area and you're like, this is like this wonderful like Western Province, like exploration, like summit finish, like crazy. And then Cedar in the Cedarburg, like what an epic way to like discover and explore our country on a gravel bike with like three of the coolest events. I think it's also so funny, I think it is important to speak about it, but these events are so cool. Like when you look at them, they're so cool, and sometimes that coolness can be slightly intimidating, but it's because like people are like, oh, I'm not cool enough to be there. But I felt that when the first Cedar I rode, I was just like, these people are just, everyone is just so flippin' cool. The moment you walk into that race village, it is the antithesis of that. Like everyone is so welcoming.
It's the warmest.
It is the warmest community, and I just like I want to raise that because maybe it was just me, but I remember like right before the Cedar when I first did it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm cool enough to be here, and like walk through that race village and everyone was just so excited, such a good vibe, cracking open a beer. If you haven't been to it,
you don't understand how beautiful that community is. So for me, I mean, agreed on all of them, but that Road to Desolation was the most special. He had that bonfire at the end where they spoke, and it was just like, it was so beautiful. Like he speaks from the heart. Everyone's eating. The thing's over, having a beer, and beforehand you're like in and around the village, and you see these people, and there's this like pre-ride. The way they engineer people being together, and these are people that are, the majority of which are bracing each other at DCs. Every Tuesday morning there's a DAS. They never actually integrate. They don't ever actually socialize together, and they actually all are the exact same people. Like they have all got so much in common. And those three events were the only time I'd seen as an outsider coming to the Cape, you see these groups all interacting together, and they're all like laughing and cracking jokes, and it's like,
no, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's magic.
So beautiful.
Anyone not there, if you don't have a standard, and if you're not wearing panel mole head to toe, and if you don't have, no one cares.
No one cares.
And
that's the thing. Like, it's the coolest thing. No one cares. Like, rock up in your flippin' tennis shoes and put flats on, and everyone's just like, come ride.
I saw flat pedals. I saw everything.
Yeah.
It's like, no one gives a shit. If anything, like, cool setup, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just be
retro.
there, and it's
Like actually more respect, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So if you haven't entered those races, go enter.
Do it. 100%.
Any one of them, all of them, ideally. Jess, I knew we'd be short on time because I could just sit here for hours and hours. And I encourage you, now that I know how close you stay, to please come back and...
Right, I'm going to use the co-working space downstairs.
Yes, please do, you and anyone else. That's what it's here for. But before we do, what's the plan for the rest of the year, and what does the short term look like for you and your many ventures that you have?
Gosh, like at the moment, kind of phasing into like more of a contract position, hopefully, with my current employer. Obviously, this is still in conversation, but that's kind of the direction. And if that doesn't go to plan, we'll then fully move back to freelance, because that is where like I do want to be. As I said earlier, like I think the sweat equity of what I've already put in to now, throw that all away for something else and climb a different corporate ladder isn't worth it. So short term, I've got some really exciting events. This February, like the entirety of February is actually booked. I'm heading up to the Cedarburg this weekend for Cedar. I thought I'd be shooting, but I'm commentating. So I'm kind of like,
nice.
let's see what's...
Where do we follow you to keep...
It will be all on the Cedar Instagram page.
Okay, Brad.
And then...
To that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I commentated last year at Sunny to See, and I think I made a royal fool of myself because I butchered everyone's name. So I've been like lying in bed this whole week practicing everyone's name. So just hoping to get it right.
I hope there's a tongue twister. So I'm going to be listening.
There will be. I definitely will mess it up. But Feb's really exciting. Got like quite a few commentary events. So Cedar, and then in Buko Big 5, and then up in Karklu for another triathlon, and then there's Epic on the cards, and working with EF Pro at Tracker. So some really big, exciting events to shoot and to actually be in front of the camera at. And then signed myself up for Calling Cape Town.
Nice.
Round 2, which is very exciting.
It's big.
Yeah. So last year I had the best day of my life at this event. I actually finished, and like the only thing that was stiff were my cheeks because I couldn't stop smiling the whole time. Granted, I'd also been stung by like 50 jellyfish, so my face was the only thing that was
Maybe just tell
really
someone
sore.
what Calling Cape Town is who doesn't know what you're talking about.
So Calling Cape Town is a ridiculous triathlon, 8K swim, the Freedom Swim. Then it's the cycle tour, it's a 109-kilometer cycle, and then the 3 peaks, so 50K trail race or run with 3,000 meters of climbing, all in one day. So you've got 24 hours to finish it. And while that's the challenge, the main challenge that they're trying to combat is really education access in South Africa. So they have about 200 athletes who are all collectively trying to raise funds for education. Last year, we hit 2 million Rand of donations, which was amazing. And this year, obviously, we're trying to surpass that goal. I had a friend ask me the other day, she was like, why do you have to do something like ludicrous to raise funds? And I kind of, agree, like it is crazy that in order to raise funds, you have to do something ludicrous. But I kind of sat with it for a bit, and I did come to the realization that like we do these challenges to almost mimic and emulate or echo the challenges that these very learners are facing themselves. Us trying to get through a day of Calling Cape Town is probably the reality of the challenges that some of these kids face on like a daily basis just to get to school. And I think, from a comparison perspective of where I was fitness and training wise last year, like I was ready to take on the event. I am not ready to take on this event. My mom sat me down the other day. She's like, you're not even exercising at the moment. She's just like, if you maybe were like riding your car in like a car competition to work or something like that. I don't know. But so from a fitness perspective, I'm not there.
Self-assessed learning.
It is. But I was like kind of having this conversation of just like, you know what, like just showing up is enough, and kind of doing what I do on the day will be sufficient. I do enjoy kind of also sitting with myself in the endurance space. I think, people joke about, what are you running away from? But it's like it's the only time you really get to know yourself. Like it's you and that little voice in your head, like the whole time.
Preaching to the
So I think it's going to be a hard day, but just also knowing that like you're not racing anyone, you're doing it for a bigger picture is just the biggest kind of like win already.
Awesome. Good luck for that.
Thanks. I flipping need it. I'm kind of like, what am I doing?
Can't wait to see that. I can't even begin to get my head around that.
Gosh. Again, it's this thing of like when you're doing it, you're just doing it, and like don't think about what's to come. Just think about like one arm in front of the next, and then one pedal stroke after the next.
Like a shark. Good. I can't get away from us.
Gosh, I did the crossing actually like 3 weeks ago, and I didn't tell my mum about it because I actually tend to never tell her anything.
Yeah.
Like even when I did 13 peaks, I only could do it because
Probably not good for a heart condition.
no, it was no, it's terrible. But she was in hospital, so it was like I can go and do this because she won't, come drive and pull me off of the mountain or something like that. So only after finishing the crossing did I tell her, and she was just like, "Well, you're not worried about sharks?" And in my head, I had somehow convinced myself that there are no sharks on the Atlantic side because the water's too cold. So I didn't think about sharks once.
That's all I'd be thinking about.
Now I'm like, fuck, now I've ruined it because now I'm going to be thinking about sharks the whole time at calling. I was like, darn, why did I have to find out the truth?
Shit.
Yeah.
Well, good luck for that.
Thank you.
Good luck for the freelance gig and whatever the contract thing lands up working out to. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you. No, thanks for this.
Really appreciate this. It's been so nice to chat to you. I'm sorry it's such a short window.
I think that's me.
Well, you've got so much on. You've got empires to run, big swings to take, barriers to break through. You've got a big swim to go and train for. So good luck with that. Hope we see you around here as often as you like to. And you can get Bitchy Bites from whenever that jar arrives. We'll let you know. But now it's being stocked at Active Hobo. Jess, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been cool.
Cheers.